The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Game junkie, Gerard Campbell.
You give up your secrets. Sooner or later, they all do.
Well, I suppose that really is unmistakable, that soundtrack, isn't it? It's another Bond game. And to tell us all about it is Gerard Campbell, Mr. Game Junkie? Mr. Game Jumpy at stuff.co.nz. Hello to you, Gerard.
Hello to you, Wammo. Yes, who can mistake that theme tune, eh?
Bloodstone, which there's no movie called Bloodstone, is there?
No, there's no movie called Bloodstone. This, I think that this one, Bloodstone, seems to be sort of some code name for the good guys, biochemical weapons that have got into the hands of the bad guys, and it's up to Mr. 007 to regather the biochemical weapons and then get the bad guys that did it.
Right. Now, what console is it out on?
It's on PC, Windows PC, Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. And of course, there's been several Bond games over the years. You've had, and probably the Bond game that many people, put down as the classic, best of all time Bond game is GoldenEye 007 by Rare on the N64.
Yeah, classic.
Classic way back in the day, and then of course you've had things like the games based on the movies, the current movies, Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace. You've also had sort of GoldenEye, Rogue Agent, and From Russia with Love, sort of in the last, I guess, 10 years. So this one here, 007 Bloodstone, is sort of, it's obviously not based on a movie because there's no movie at the moment, but it again has Daniel Craig as the main Bond character. And it comes from Bizarre Creations, which is a studio that is mostly known for their car racing games like Project Gotham Racing and Blur. So they've got a really strong pedigree in car racing games.
Warning bells ringing for me.
Ding, 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 ding. And I think they have done one other action game. I think it might have been something called The Club or something. So, but yeah, their history is racing games. 007 Bloodstone is a third-person action game, and combat's competent, but it's just a wee bit samey, to be quite honest. It's got a lot of, it's taken a lot of gameplay elements from other better games. Despite the fact that he's got I can't remember whether Bond's MI5 or MI6, but in the movies he had all these wonderful magical gadgets that he could use for his disposal. The only gadget that he's got here is a smartphone, and he can. What more do you need,
Gerard?
Well, I know. You can do everything. He probably play Angry Birds during his downtime while he's waiting for those bad guys. But it's pressing a button on a smartphone. It changes your screen view, and it'll sort of pinpoint where all the bad guys are, give you waypoints on where he has to hit, and it's if you played Batman Arkham Asylum, Batman in that game had something called detective mode, which same sort of thing, on his visor, on his cowl, it would pinpoint where the bad guys are and whatever. So, yep, that's taken out. And another feature that is very similar to a game called Splinter Cell Conviction. In that game, the agent Sam Fisher had something called Mark and Execute, which meant when you're taken down enough guys, by melee combat, then you're able to slow motion target 2 up to 3 guys and then take them out, boom, 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 with a pot shot. Here, Bond's got something called focus aim, that every time he takes someone down with a melee attack, and they're pretty good melee attacks, he bloody startles them and he punches them and he whacks them and crunches and cracking. Then he gets a little meter that fills up, and he can, when he pulls on the Xbox version, at least the left bumper and the right trigger, he'll hit this focus aim mode and he'll slow motion, 1 shot, 1 kill, all these bad guys. So, they're things they've done. So, the combat was good. The combat was fun. The combat was good. But the thing that really frustrated out the game was, funnily enough, was the car sequences.
Which you think they'd be best at?
Well, I mean, the cars, they're fast and furious, and they're full of really explosive moments, and they're action-packed, which they are. But often, a lot of the car ones, essentially, you're gonna complete that sequence by dying a lot, because you will die a lot. But you have to basically memorize the course, because in some of the car ones, you'll have trucks coming out, blocking your view. You'll have petrol stations blowing up, and often the explosions obscure your view. So as you rush through the smoke and the fire, you smack into a semi-trailer truck that's come towards you. So then you've got to replay that section again. And there was one section that Bond is driving his car, and he's got to chase a bad guy who's in a train. This takes place in Siberia. He's got to chase a bad guy in a train. Bond's racing along this sort of frozen river, and you've got to go under bridges, and you've got to dodge the icy water, but things are going so fast, and you can't actually see where the correct path goes, that you'll drown a lot.
Right.
You'll drown a lot till you sort of memorize it course. So I mean, the
sounds
the
tedious.
combat is good. It's very easy. It's a very easy game. And with this sort of focus aim thing, it makes it a lot easier too. The action. I thought the combat sections were good. They're action packed enough to keep shooter fans happy and certainly Bond fans happy, but I just thought that it was let down by the driving sequences, because they're often a lot on rails, like a lot of the sequences, especially those in the boats and in the car, it'll be capture the bad guy, chase the bad guy, but often you can't get the bad guy until the game says you can.
Okay, right.
You can't, so I'm just surprised that with a company that had such a really strong pedigree in terms of car racing games, that the car racing sequences weren't a bit more free flow. But then that said, I guess if you're keeping to a license like Bond, you've obviously got strict parameters in which you've got to do. But I mean, it's a very cinematic game. I mean, there's lots of really cinematic cutscenes, and you get chase sequences running through buildings and having to jump and do bits and pieces. But just at times, it was just a little too on rails for me, which was a bit unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, it looks like a game that I could let slip past me, I think. You haven't sold it to me.
Yes. No. Well, how much will you give me for it? I'll talk to you later on.
Yeah.
And of course, just quick before we go, apparently today, Call of Duty Black Ops is out today.
Today? Goodness me.
Wow. It's today.
There's another stocking stuffer. And of course, we're not too far away, I guess, with our list of 2010. The next few weeks, we'll start compiling that. Love to hear everyone else's thoughts, I guess, for 2010 as well, and suggestions. Make sure you send those through. But that is 007 Bloodstone with Gerard Campbell's thoughts. Go and check it out at stuff.co.nz on the Game Junkie blog, and also continue the conversation on Twitter as well, twitter.com/GameJunkieNZ. We'll see you next week, Mr. Gerard Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Wammo.